Welcome to the TWI webinar on how to learn to lead on the shop floor and quickly adapt to change. Some of the thinking exposed in this short webinar helped a nation over 70 years ago to successfully deal with a worldwide crisis. It was then exploited by a destroyed nation to build leading global brands and remain competitive through all the years since. Can we exploit this lean thinking during the current crisis to help your shop floor leaders and people change and adapt to the new environment? TWI is a great way for your people to engage with their work and improve your competitiveness. I hope this webinar helps you with the current crisis and helps you to understand how your people could learn on the shop floor quickly. In order to learn quickly, we need to understand a little about how we think most of the time. Over the years, we've built up knowledge through education, on-the-job training, mentoring, and other means. With this knowledge, we tried to do things, and consequently, we acquired skills by doing something successful with the knowledge. Over time, the more successful the result, then the more it reinforces how we think and act the next time we encounter a similar issue or problem. We build up, if you like, our comfort zone. Here, there's no need to reinvent the wheel each time we meet a similar issue. Accordingly, we react to the situation comfortable in the knowledge that we achieve a successful result. The comfort zone is where our capabilities lie and is an automatic position for us as it requires little effort to go about our lives and activities. New issues that challenge us will automatically be approached from the comfort zone as we try to confirm past knowledge and a result. To go beyond this threshold is not a natural process. To learn a new way of dealing with an issue or problem unfortunately requires us to do something that our head is not wanting us to do. Slow down and think. Why? Because it requires effort to do this. Moving out of the comfort zone into the effort zone is a deliberate decision by us to learn. We are challenging ourselves to think differently and then to do something to see what the outcome is. To quote Ken Blanchard, if the new thinking works and we change our behavior, then we have learned and you're no longer the person you once were. What else can stop us from learning? You may have heard the expression, you only know what you know, and probably in a negative way when someone is challenging your position on something. If you look at the statement from a positive perspective, what might the other person be trying to get across? They may be trying to say that your map of the world isn't my map of the world, and how can we expose the differences between us for a better solution? For a lot of people, this is not a natural position to take because of something called habit. A habit, of course, being a repetitive way of thinking and behaving that we have had success with in the past and continue to practice. Most of the time we are in habit mode and our brain is thinking unconsciously. This does not mean we are asleep, far from it, but rather we are so familiar with the environment around us that we are doing things fast without consciously thinking about them. For example, have you ever driven between two places and you cannot remember what happened during that short time? The radio could have been on, someone could have been beside you talking, and you passed several traffic lights and cars. No one was hurt and you're going in the right direction. This was habit, and we didn't need to interrupt our head unless something changed abruptly. A wonderful thing, all that information being processed at 1 billion times a second. The challenge comes, however, when we need to learn something new. Our habits take less energy and our brains want to use them most of the time to save energy. Learning requires us to slow down and think. Our brains don't like to slow down and think. So now we may be thinking to ourselves that we have two brains, two ways of thinking, if you like. The unconscious thinking brain, which is going 100 miles per hour most of the time, and a slower conscious thinking brain that only we can call into play. We may also know that this is the fast thinking brain requires little energy, and our brains want to use it most of the time in order to conserve energy. We have hardwired ourselves to stay in the fast lane whenever possible because of habit. In order to change this habit, we have to create another lane that is better than the fast one our brain likes. We have to think slowly and consciously to build this lane and then repeat until the new thinking becomes a habit. This is tough. How do you slow down to learn on the shop floor or office when everything is moving fast and we need to get things resolved? Before we try to answer this question, let's understand why we need to learn on the shop floor as a priority. In front of you is a performance graph that many businesses will experience as they try to improve over time. Looking at the graph, it almost looks like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, which over time is exhausting and hard to sustain. Another way to look at the performance profile is to think of it like a seesaw. Things are going well as the curve rises, only to go back down later by a lesser amount. This cycle repeats as actions are implemented to push performance up. Over a longer period of time, the effort and resources to make a change has been substantial for a small amount of improvement. We are supposed to be working smarter, not harder. Management and shop floor can quickly become fatigued trying to stop the performance slide back. This typically happens with an organization that doesn't have wedges in place. If only we could get off the seesaw. Why are our actions causing the seesaw profile? Management designed a new system of work and people operate to it. Did the people who knew most about the work get involved in the design of their work? Was everything that affects the performance of the work discussed for improvement? Reflecting on these questions may give us some direction on where to go next. To help with the reflection on the seesaw performance, here are some more challenges to your thinking. The upside down triangle is a visual that maybe challenges the way that you think about the company. We know our customers and talk to them every day. As management, we design systems based on our customers' feedback and people see the benefit of them. That may or may not be the case, but typically when you think of those people closest to the customer on a daily basis, it is your frontline people in the business who add value for the customer every day. Value here is any activity that consumes resource and the customer is prepared to pay for. The activity is done correct first time. Who is best placed to see that value? Frontline people who every day see the waste that consumes their time. Waiting for material and information, moving and transporting things around the business, rejecting items and then reworking are some examples of the waste. As management, how do we see the noise that people at the front line experience daily? As management, did our new improved way of working take account of the waste that the frontline people deal with daily? If not, then the actions we put in place will be incomplete because we did not understand the problem we tried to solve in the first place. By now, your reflection may be focused on how people on the shop floor get involved with improving their work. If we were to stand back and look at the improvements we've implemented in our business over the last 2 or 3 years, how would we categorize them? Big, medium, small, others? If you're working on lots of small improvements coming from suggestions off the shop floor office, then you are in a minority. Typically, business will work on complex improvement projects with an expert at the helm, and actions are focused on how that person sees the problem. Dr. Alan G. Robinson of the USA has carried out a global study on 150 organizations over 17 countries and concluded that high-performing companies get most of their ideas from the frontline people and gain significant competitive advantage. In his book, Ideas Are Free, he exposes Coca-Cola and how Sweden was the lowest cost plant in the world, measured per employee, despite having one of the highest standards of living costs in the world. How could this be? Ideas per employee were one of the highest at that time in the Coca-Cola group. Companies with ideas running at 20 plus per employee and 80% plus implemented have significant competitive advantage. This is not easy. So the question you may be asking yourself, how do I implement that type of behavior in my company? You may be wanting to know what we can do to learn the shop floor, so let's look at some possibilities. In our traditional company, the organizational structure is typically shown in a pyramid where the most senior people are shown at the top and the least senior people are shown at the bottom. In between these people are the layers of management, including frontline managers such as supervisors and team leaders. Depending on the size of the company, they may or may not be shown. The hierarchy structure here simply shows 3 levels. If we look at the organizational structure from a seniority perspective, we may conclude that people at the top of the company are more responsible and make bigger decisions about the company. Some of these decisions could be to do with the problems from inside the company. These problems in the seniority pyramid structure are typically pushed up the management levels until someone accountable is tasked with finding the solution. Here, problems are pushed up and solutions are pushed down. It's probably assumed here that the senior people who design the business systems have time to find solutions to the problems frontline people experience every day. Unfortunately, the reality is that the solutions that are implemented in this way rarely solve the problems once and for all, and it comes back to bite again. Let's flip the org structure on its head on the belief that the people who know most about the problem are the frontline management and people closest to the customer's work. Instead of solutions coming from senior and middle managers, leaders now set challenges to those employees closest to the customer, and people are coached on the shop floor on how to learn. Problems are defined by the people on the front line based on the waste they see every day and the opportunities to improve. Thinking is now part of the whole organization, and people who traditionally were doing things are now thinking and doing things. In other words, they are engaged in the design of their own work. Countermeasures are exposed, and action to close the gap on the standard, and ideas are generated to improve beyond the standard. How do we flip the org thinking to create this environment? A way to connect frontline people to thinking as well as doing is through TWI. TWI, or training within industry, was the solution to how the US ensured that people, as a resource, continued to meet the labour requirements of factories in the US during the Second World War. Yes, it's over 70 years old and was widely implemented in many American plants providing products for the war effort. It was managed at a national level and quickly taught people the work of others who had gone to fight in the war. When people returned after the war and life returned to more normal existence, TWI quickly disappeared from the American industry. One nation, however, did hold on to it, and it became one of the means to recover a decimated economy. Japanese companies, especially in the automotive sector, exploited it for quality improvement and competitiveness. People have suggested that it may even be the roots of lean. In 1983, John Shook, who was one of the first Western managers to work in a Toyota plant, came across an old dog-eared TWI manual when trying to transfer skills and set up the first USA plant collaboration with Toyota. This was given to him by one of his Japanese colleagues to help understand what way Toyota worked with people. TWI is represented by the 5 needs of a supervisor, comprising knowledge and skill to do their job. Knowledge of the work and responsibilities are specific to each company. However, supervisor skills of instructing people, skills of good job relations, and skills of improving the job are unique to the TWI way of working. All supervisory skills are based on a 4-step process and scientific thinking that can be replicated throughout the business. Let's dig a little deeper into the skills of the supervisor. Typically, a lot of frontline management are in these roles as they've shown themselves to have good technical understanding of the work and can fix shop floor problems to get orders out to the customer. Now, in the supervisor's role, they are faced with getting results through people, which for many is a real challenge. It's easier to tell people what to do, as my problem-solving skills got me to the role and not others. People are told what to do. These supervisor attributes could hold a company back, as shop floor and office people have little outlet for their creativity and innovation. If the order to delivery system is weak, then people will find their own way of doing things to get the job finished, i.e. workarounds despite what the supervisor tells them. This is not the best way for sustainable improvement. Competitive advantage has been lost due to a lack of skill in capturing the best way to do the work, job instruction, getting to know people at an individual level and understanding their strengths, job relations. Improvement of the work is limited to the capability and capacity of the supervisor rather than those people closest to the work, job method. Competitive advantage has been lost by only allowing those in management positions to design the work rather than building the skills of the frontline management to design the work with their people. Let's get people thinking as well as doing to get off the seesaw and generate ideas for improvement. There are a set of colored cards that can be carried around with the supervisor in their shirt top pockets to help build the skills of job instruction JI, job relations JR, and job methods JM. Each J routine and 4-step method is described in the pocket cards. Building a new habit takes time, and the supervisor is triggered by the cards to slow down to learn. So where do you start TWI? Depending on the obstacles that may exist in the shop floor, it may be better to start the new learning using either job instruction or job relations. Specifically, if the relationship with people is not good, then job relations may be needed to build trust and cooperation with the supervisor. The TWI methodology is joined up thinking, and even though the current situation requires starting with either job instruction or job relations, they are all part of a whole. As we can see from the interlocking circles, each J routine is dependent on the other. People, process, and purpose need to be considered in order to learn quickly. Good relations is foundational to job instruction. People will not follow instructions if the intent is not known. Good job instruction both precedes and follows job methods. Work must be stabilized before it can be improved. Improvement activities through job method enhance strong relations and vice versa. Direct involvement in designing jobs can generate ideas and a positive engagement. Practicing these job routines with the people in the work area will build capability, confidence, and mastery over time. Significantly, it will cause the work to maintain performance and improve to a higher level. It looks like we can get off the seesaw. From our current seesaw performance, the supervisor practices the job instruction and job relations routine with the people in the work area. Change holds over time and the seesaw stops bouncing. Stability P1 is institutionalized through people training at an individual level using the 4-step instruction routine, and relations support this as people have been managed at an individual level using the JR routine. Job instruction and job relations are the wedge that stop the change rolling backwards. The opportunity now exists to build on a solid foundation. Using the job method routine, the supervisor can now walk through the job instruction information at a more detailed level, viewing each logical task as a number of elements. Each element is questioned: what, why, when, where, who, and how, to expose ideas and potential better ways of working. The new way of working P2 is then institutionalized using the job instruction routine, and a new level of performance is sustained. To help with understanding when to use the J routines, it's helpful to know something about the obstacles to the current performance. If we look at the obstacles through 2 simple lenses at the supervisor level, then it will help with initial engagement. TWI asks us to look at problems from a people and a process perspective. If the performance issue is to do with people not knowing how to do the work or unable to do the work, then job instruction is a good routine to start with. If the performance issue is to do with people not caring about the work or simply not following the work instructions, then job relations may be the better place to start. If the performance issue is to do with the work being too difficult, then job method may be the best routine to start with, assuming there's a good job instruction in place. Knowing what J routines to apply to situations gets easier as you practice. It's learning by doing. So where are you now? The diagram shows the amount of time each management level will typically spend on maintaining a standard way of working. This is an example of a business where the best way to do the job for everyone is not yet a routine or habit. The operators spend all their time trying to maintain a standard way of working, but issues arise and people work around them creatively. Supervisors spend all their time trying to help their direct reports close the gap and get orders out. Managers are pulled into the day-to-day problems as supervisors did not design the system that they manage and require assistance from those that did. Senior managers are also pulled into the day-to-day work as customers complain of late deliveries, quality issues, etc. All management levels are pulled down to the level below to solve problems. Little time is available to improve the work, satisfy customers, satisfy shareholders, and develop the people in the business. How do we start to get managers and people using their time efficiently and not doing the work of the level below? The J routines are clearly focused on the supervisors and the people that report directly to them on the shop floor or office. It is a bottom-up approach with the support of the senior team and especially the supervisor's manager. If we look at a business using lean thinking, then the percentage time that management should spend in maintaining standardized work decreases as management seniority level increases. This is a more efficient way for people to use their time. Using the job instruction and job relations routines, the supervisor can now take control of the work with the support of the operators. Working with their direct reports, the supervisors establish the one best way to do the job, and people are trained in that method so the work becomes a habit. Everyone's time is efficiently used with TWI. Again, looking at people's time, but in relation to how they spend it improving the way of work, we can see that the more senior the person, the more time is expected from them. The time to develop and improve the work will not exist if we have not standardized the way of working. Supervisors can now engage their direct reports to scrutinize the current standardized work, knowing that it is a stable foundation to improve on. Using the job method routine, ideas are generated by the people closest to the customer values and issues. The ideas are tested, and those that are seen to be effective are captured for the new job instruction. Everyone's time is effectively used with TWI. As ideas become part of the new standard work, and people are trained to consciously follow them every day, then we begin to form habits that require less effort. Job instruction and job relations becomes a supervisor's daily way of thinking and doing in the business. Time is better managed and capacity for improvement increases. Job method does require slow, deliberate thinking as people challenge the work elements and generate ideas. Initially, our heads will fight against this as we need to slow down to think. With time, like any new routine, the job method process will become easier the more we practice it. As we move from maintaining the standard to improving the standard, the level of performance increases with each cycle. Moving from maintaining to improving the work creates a continuous improvement cycle, and over time it becomes a routine and habit. In his book, The Fifth Discipline, Peter Senge refers to the learning organization. This type of organization is able to renew itself because it reflects on what assumptions existed yesterday to cause today's problems. To quote Peter Senge, today's problems come from yesterday's solutions. This type of thinking is not common in business. TWI is a good step on the learning ladder and reconnecting thinking with doing at the frontline management and operator level. Starting TWI will help you to learn faster on the shop floor. People who are constantly learning are more capable to deal with change and adapt for a business survival. Change is becoming more rapid when you look, for example, at the average lifespan of a business in the S&P index over the last 70 years, down from 60 years to less than 20 years and shrinking. The current pandemic is another factor in the need to change and adapt. Really then, the only sustainable competitive advantage is an organization's ability to learn faster than the competition. And that concludes the TWI webinar. If you would like help or advice in anything that we've covered throughout this webinar, please email the Operational Excellence team, opexquery@investni.com. The Operational Excellence team can help improve the leadership, productivity, profitability, and competitiveness of your business through a range of principles, systems, tools, and techniques. Take care, and thank you for watching.